Good morning, this is Shelby Law with the Great Basin Fire Potential Briefing for Tuesday, September 10th, 2024. Fire potential impacts for the next few days are shown here. For today, we still have very dry, gusty winds over much of Idaho into western Nevada and even southern Nevada today, with the strongest gusts along the Sierra Front, and another round of mixed wet, dry thunderstorms over Utah and up into southeast Idaho and western Wyoming. Tomorrow, we start to see the cold front moving through. By late in the afternoon, it should be located across far northern Nevada and into central and eastern Idaho, with cooler temperatures and high relative humidities behind the front, with some rain showers coming into western Idaho as well. Ahead of the front, still very gusty, low relative humidities over much of Nevada into western Utah, gusts up to 50 miles an hour possible. And then some storms here in northern Utah and up into western Wyoming. By Thursday, that front will have moved through the Great Basin, will be located across the far south, with still some gusty, dry conditions out ahead of that front into far southern Nevada, Arizona Strip, and southeast Utah. But much cooler temperatures, higher relative humidities in place across much of the north, especially Idaho and western Wyoming. We'll see good wetting rains. We'll talk about precip totals in a minute, but definitely some high elevation snow expected as well. Yesterday we had quite a few thunderstorms pop up across the state of Utah and far eastern Nevada. Most of these storms were accompanied by some precipitation. Fire activity for yesterday shows 25 new fires for 44 acres, so relatively light initial attack as far as acreage goes, but large fire growth was significant with over 53,000 acres on our large fires. Air seas continue to remain high across much of the Great Basin under this recent warm and dry weather pattern. This morning's satellite imagery shows a couple of features here. We have high pressure still in place over the south and east portions of the Great Basin, with moisture over Utah. Further north and west, we can see the low pressure system beginning to strengthen and drive a little bit further south. That will be impacting us starting tomorrow. Smoke impacts remain quite significant this afternoon across Idaho, western Wyoming, along the Sierra Front, and even some smoke from California continuing to move up into eastern Nevada. For tomorrow, we will see some clearing as winds pick up and strengthen, especially across Nevada, and we have a wind shift happening in Idaho. So we'll watch for some of those changing smoke patterns tomorrow. For today, we've issued quite a few high-risk areas for western and central Idaho, western Nevada, and southeast Nevada for those gusty winds out ahead of the incoming low-pressure system. A closer look at the winds here, showing the strongest gusts along the Sierra Front, with values up to 40 to 45 miles an hour possible. Further north in northwest Nevada and southern Nevada, those gusts will be up to 30 miles an hour and slightly lower across the central Idaho mountains. Minimum relative humidities are quite low again today, with values in the upper single digits to low to mid-teens. Precipitation for this afternoon will occur over the higher elevations of central and eastern Utah and up into southeast Idaho and western Wyoming, with moisture in place there. Maximum temperatures are still pretty warm across much of the area, with many valley highs around 90 degrees. Tomorrow, we start to see that main low pressure system drawing closer to the Great Basin. In fact, the cold front will be moving through the portions of Idaho tomorrow, western Idaho particularly. But ahead of that front, winds really pick up across Nevada and into western Utah, for we have high risk for many of those areas tomorrow. And we are starting to yellow out Idaho as the cooler temperatures and higher relative humidities begin to move in on Wednesday. Afternoon wind gusts shown here are very strong tomorrow, with gusts up to 50 miles an hour possible over much of western and central Nevada, really all across Nevada and into much of western and southern Utah. We can see the winds shift across the north behind the front to a northerly or northwesterly type of flow. Could see some gusty winds behind the front in southern Idaho. Minimum relative humidities really begin to come up on Wednesday, with those values in the 30s to low 40s across the higher elevations of western Idaho. Still very dry out ahead of that front in Idaho, or in Nevada and into western Utah. Even southeast Idaho will still have some lower values Wednesday afternoon. Precipitation on Wednesday shows quite a bit of precip starting to move into western Idaho behind that front. On Wednesday, we're looking at maybe as much as 0.2 to a half an inch or more of precipitation just on Wednesday as it starts to move into western Idaho. Behind the front, out ahead of the front, some lighter amounts in eastern Idaho, western Wyoming, and northeast Utah. It doesn't Maximum temperatures will be down quite a bit from Tuesday into Wednesday, with highs in Boise only in the 70s and cooler in the higher elevations. Temperatures start to come down a bit in Reno as well, but still warm in Utah. That main low pressure system continues to move eastward on Thursday for another round of, or continuation of, showers and high elevation snow in central Idaho. Still very dry over Utah and Nevada, but a cool down is coming. Still those gusty winds out ahead of the cold front are expected in southern Utah, so we do have high risk triggers issued there on Thursday. Again, we can see strong gusty winds behind the cold front in southwest Idaho. RHs are up. It's going to be cool, so we're not issuing any high risk, but definitely some gusty winds to deal with there. And then gusty winds still out ahead of that front in southern and eastern Utah, where conditions are still pretty dry. Minimum relative humidities are very high across the north on Thursday. Precipitation amounts for Thursday here, we're looking at in these lighter shades of green anywhere from 1/4 to 1/2 inch of precipitation, and the blues are from 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch of precipitation. So this is a pretty good soaking event on Thursday for portions of the central Idaho mountains as well as western Wyoming. Utah and Nevada are still generally going to be dry. Maximum temperatures drop further on Thursday with highs in the 60s. And 50s for many of the northern areas, and highs in the 70s further south. 3-day precipitation totals are shown here. This is mainly coming in Wednesday into Thursday. Some pretty good amounts possible over the central Idaho mountains with this event in total. Maybe an inch or so in some of these lighter blues, and the greens are going to be between 1/4 to 1/2 inch of precipitation. Okay, after Thursday, that low moves off to the east pretty quickly by Friday for drier air across the geographic area. On Saturday, continued dry conditions are expected area-wide as another low pressure system starts to develop off the Pacific coast. That trough deepens pretty rapidly on Sunday. Sunday should still be kind of a drier day for most of the area, but we may start to see some precipitation kind of right on our doorstep to the west. And then right now the models are bringing this low pressure system into the Great Basin on Monday for another round of showers and another shot of cooler temperatures to much of the area, especially the north and the west. 7-day precip totals are showing some of that precipitation coming back into the Great Basin early next week, but we'll keep an eye on the models as they tend to change a little bit. The extended forecast puts below normal temperatures across the Great Basin with continued above normal chances for precipitation along mainly the northern half of the area. This concludes today's fire potential briefing. Please check back tomorrow for the latest updates.